flow sensor decoder. Next up, we'll talk about the flow sensor decoders, or FS decoders. And just like with the master valve, when wiring a flow sensor to the weather track, you have the option to either wire that device directly to the weather track controller or add that device to the two-wire path. At WeatherTrack, we prefer the security of the direct wire installation. We feel that adding a specific wire that runs between the controller and the point of connection is the most secure way to reliably transmit the data. And when you direct wire your flow device to the WeatherTrack controller, you don't need a flow sensor decoder. So pictured here, you see the wire ports on the valve wire terminal board where you would plug in a direct connection for the flow sensor 1, or you can direct connect as many as 4 separate flow sensors onto the WeatherTrack system. Only when you want to add the flow sensor to the two-wire path and have the two-wire path manage the information and operation of the flow sensor will you need a flow sensor or FS decoder. Next up, we have the flow decoder, or the FS or flow sensor decoder, part number WTW-H20-FS. And then on the back, we have the installation guide, the wiring diagram, the warning about using the right wire nuts. So again, when you open the package, you'll see that the device comes with the specified wire connectors that we always use, the DBRY wire connectors. And then you see here the flow sensor decoder has the black and red wires that go to the two-wire path and the white, yellow, and blue wires that we'll use to wire up the flow sensor in the field. Again, we have the LED diagnostics, the power and activity light, which make it easy to troubleshoot this decoder in the field. Next up, we have the flow decoder. You'll notice that the flow decoder programs a lot like the station decoder. So the first step is to plug in the decoder into the terminal board on the mini chassis. Then we hit setup. Again, hit the forward arrow until you get to setup 15, labeled configure H202 wire, and then the plus or minus to select the option program decoders. Once you see program decoders, hit select. Then when you push the star button, the controller will read the decoder and show you the assigned address and allow you to change it if you so choose. Notice when you install a flow decoder, the controller immediately recognizes it as such, and the option that comes up on the display is to program this as a flow decoder, or FS1, if you choose to manage multiple points of connection on your two-wire path. The flow decoder for point of connection 2 should be programmed as FS2. So once you've selected the proper device name for the decoder, you hit the star button again, and you'll see the message, programming successful. And all that's left to do is unplug it from the station programming terminal. So just like with the master valve decoder, by default the decoder will come programmed as FS1, and you're going to have specific programming if you want to change that to FS2 or 3 or 4 if you're managing multiple points of connection. Also remember, when you're using flow sensor decoders, you have to turn them on in the WeatherTrack program so the controller knows to look for the flow sensor decoder on the two-wire path. Where if you're in front of the controller, you hit the setup menu and then the forward arrow until you get to setup 15, which is a screen called configure H202 wire. And then you'll use the plus and minus buttons to select the option configure direct connect. When you see the message configure direct connect, you hit the select button, and this is where we program how our master valves and flow sensors are wired. So if we stick with our example from last time, we have a direct installation on master valve 1, and then master valve 2, 3, and 4 are all two-wire configurations. And then we hit the forward arrow to take us to our flow sensor settings, where we set up the first flow sensor as a direct installation, and then put flow sensor 2, flow sensor 3, and flow sensor 4 on the two-wire path.